Frank, thanks so much for coming on the show. Why don't you take a minute to tell us about the work that you do and who you are?
John or JK, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Frank, I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm geographically located in the state of Texas here in the US in a small community called Fair Oaks. I identify as male, ambivert personality-wise, dark brown skin, Hispanic, Latino, or just call me Frank. I'm a people enthusiast, people and culture leader, executive with two decades of experiences around talent development, inclusive initiatives, and really just around people, right? And so, Dr. Frankie G or Frankie G and JK or Frank K and JK, I'd love to just, dive in. I appreciate the invite, my friends. I'd be remiss in saying that I'm also a father and a husband, right? Those are two things that are absolutely important and drive the work of what I'm doing currently, which is around people and just being a people enthusiast.
People enthusiast. That is a new term to me. Can you explain what that is exactly?
Enthusiasm encompasses a lot, right? I mean, you can look up definitions around enthusiasm, and it's really driving positivity, grace around. And it's based on research though too. So this is not something that's just out there in the air. It's very tangible.
Okay.
You can actually feel the energy that somebody projects. So you get what you project, right?
Yeah.
And it better to be positive about something or frame it in a positive growth mindset versus a negative or perfectionism or worrisome, right? Which is
Mhm.
where we're always caught up currently and always. It bogs down our most positive things about us and why people gravitate towards us, right? So that people enthusiasm is really about fun and facts, better workplace experiences. Hopefully that can translate also into your personal lives. I start with workplace though, JK, you know that too, right? Because outside of sleep, work is the one place that we spend our most time in, sometimes probably more than sleep, right? But we don't spend a lot of time in our connections with friends and family and those things, those hobbies that we love. So it's really about just having that fun with a little bit of facts, creating some framework around that, delivering workshops for folks. And that's what really, drives kind of, I think, my enthusiasm is really helping others and pouring into their cup.
I love it. And your enthusiasm is infectious and emotional contagion is a real thing. So I'm feeling it. Thank you for the lift. It's been a day, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about you and the work that you're bringing. So I am going to challenge this a little bit, right? Because um, being positive really is important. And we hear a lot about it, but there's a lot of stuff that really isn't positive that's going on, right? And external in the world, we see workplaces are shrinking, people are being asked to do more with less, their jobs are getting disrupted by AI, and all of those things might be hard to put a spin, or if you do put a spin, it may look like you're really just not paying attention to some of these other things. And so knowing that our brains are wired with a negativity bias, and this is like an evolutionary thing, right? It's like it serves us well because we're still here to think that something, when there's smoke, there's fire. When there's rustling in the bush, it might be a lion. Let's get out of here. And it actually takes a lot more mental work to appraise that differently and to put that positive spin. How do you empower people to do that when they're really stuck in that negative aspect of the situation?
A simple 3M framework. Because folks like framework and they like easy,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
Now, this is just is my take on it, built on some research, built on some practicality. And can I just say, JK, that you're not alone. Like literally, JK, you're not alone. And for all listeners, you're not alone. So I want to preface by saying you're not alone with this negativity. You said it perfectly. We're just
Yeah.
like human wired that way. This 3M approach, mantra, movement, moment. Let me just pull on my own strings here, right there, right? A mantra, literally having some self-talk, so much research around that. Talk to yourself in the first person, you know, so saying I, like I statements, I, Frank,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a good day. I'm gonna crush it today. I'm gonna crush it today. Talk to yourself in the second person. You, right?
Yeah.
Talk to yourself in the third person. What would Frank do? What would JK do in this situation? He's been through this before. You've been through chaos before, and you came out the other side with clarity. What did you do? Right?
Mm.
Use that kind of like mantra and create a mantra for yourself. And you absolutely need this probably multiple times a day, and that's okay. You probably need it multiple times. You just need it, right? You need it after that. You said earlier you just came off a tough one, right?
Yeah.
It's been a one, right? That one
Yeah.
conversation, that one, but then create some movement, right? Obviously, there's so much research around the positive hormones that we can release,
Oh
right?
yeah.
With movement, going outside, changing your perspective, right? Maybe even putting on a little bit of music to set the mood,
Hmm.
literally shift your mood, right? A little music, something, but a movement. You have to, and sometimes it's not always here. You gotta seek it, right? That last one around the moment is connection. So much research that's out there. Quinga, gosh, I really forget the year of the research. Quinga 2022, 2023, really great research around this idea around different behaviors and change, right? Navigating change and chaos,
It's important right now. I'm tuned in. Tell me
right?
what's the research say?
Connection, kinship.
Hmm.
It just validated, all the research that's out there. But now connection and taking a moment, that last M, taking a
Hmm.
moment. I want you, so you said it's been a heck of a day, or heck, it's been one, right? You said it's one, and you said more with less. I love it. So I'm gonna have to follow you on this. Think about though, reframe this. When was the last moment that you had with someone that you vibe with that you felt refreshed right after? Like you're just like, gosh, it's been after so much rescheduling, this, that, and it doesn't have to be a professional connection. It could be a personal connection. But, how did you feel? You loved it, right? You're like, oh gosh, okay. Immediate start texting. You're like, oh, that was great, great time, just connecting, this, that, the other, right? Those moments are absolutely valuable. And sometimes the biggest problems have the easiest solution. So that
Hmm.
moment, take a moment. Mantra, movement, moment. Use it. I promise you. I struggle with it. I'll be very transparent,
Yeah.
but it helps. Do all three, do one of all the above, do them as often as you need.
Yeah, I love it. And in our pre-conversation before we started this, you really did help provide that moment in that space. And I just want to thank you. You're living up to your reputation here, just helping establish that connection. And it does. It really did shift. I was coming out of a tough call, and yeah, this really helped set the stage. I love it. And there's this concept of creating distance internally in the mind. And I think when you in this mantra part of that framework, like the science that I've heard recently, I think the book was called Chatter. Mark someone, I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry, I'll have to look it up. But that using your name, like, come on, John, you can do this, looking in the mirror, that creates a shift. Actually, that's the book it came from, Shift. Same author, Chatter and Shift. But uh, giving yourself that pep talk really creates this distance from what you're experiencing versus thinking about what you're experiencing. And it sounds so simple, but it is so effective. In the work that I try to bring to teams, at the essence of it, it is recognizing when your amygdala, that fight, flight, freeze, or appease part of your brain is activated and you're like triggered into this state. Recognizing that and then using labeling, trying to just find the word that goes with that emotion. And it sounds so stupid. I really was like, this sounds like BS. But when you try to do it, it's hard because when you're upset, it's like you don't want to like start thinking of words. All I was thinking is like, gosh, I really have a limited vocabulary about around emotions. I need to change that. But even in that effort, you notice this shift where it's like, okay, I'm not experiencing it the same way. I'm thinking about the experience. And that's one of the very first steps to like kind of um, you know, getting ourselves regulated. Because when we're dysregulated and in that triggered space, guess what? We're not having that moment. I love this framework, and I too resonate. I haven't gotten to say it, but physically separating. ourselves from that space, going out into nature, it does something. For me, I'm lucky to have like a forest behind where I live. So it's just a reminder. Internally, I try to recreate that too, but externally, it's like is this big thing of reminding me that I am a part of a much bigger thing. My problems are so important to me, but in the big scheme of things, they're pretty insignificant. How can I like give it that attention with that type of space? I am going to hold on to this mantra movement moment technique. I kind of use parts of it anyway, but I love the intentionality behind that for sure.
Thank you.
Mentioned that you have some organizational like change transformation background. I'm really curious, like in this time when we see so much change happening and disruption and transformations in business, which mean that people are having to weather a lot of uncertainty, which can be so triggering and unnerving for many. What advice like would you give to those who are in these situations where they can't really predict what's going to happen, but they're trying to like have that energy and that focus to do the work they need to do?
There's a lot there, JK. There's a lot there. Are we gonna set up a part two, three, four, five,
We may, yeah,
a series? There's so much framework out there, right? There, I mean, you can do pro sci. There's a lot of change management, communication, management. There's so many different kind of frameworks around this. I think you still have to go back to calibrating with your individual self because I think at the very end, the tail end, the second part to what your question was is like the ambiguity ahead of us,
yeah,
right? Let's go back to let's go just for a moment. Go with me on this. Let's go back to that mindfulness of the 3M, right? That
sure,
moment and not necessarily a moment with connection with someone else, maybe a moment for yourself, right? You've probably known of so many different frameworks out there, but I just off the top of my head right now, the Japanese framework around ikigai, so that pursuit of happiness and purpose, right?
okay. I'm not familiar with it, so
No, it's so essentially and love it, right? But it's finding what you're good at and what you enjoy, those kind of two things, and then aligning that with what the world needs
mm.
and what you may be able to make money off of, or and it's not necessarily like the pursuit of money, but just obviously what you need to pay the bills,
Sure,
right? What you
sure.
to survive, right? Your contributions, right? So aligning those two things with those two things, and you find this sense of purpose, right? This ikigai, a sense, and it's the reason I bring this up is because it's not looking at the past
Okay.
because you get caught up in the past. That's when our worry, anxiety, and all that comes up. But I'm going to challenge that and expand on and say, let's not look in the future either too far. Let's be a little selfish and use corporate speak. Let's be a little bit more short-term focus,
Okay.
more short-term focus. Just focus on the moment right now. And I think you said it earlier that I'd love to expand on. It is difficult. Write down those words and almost do not even change management, organizational development. Let's just do a SWOT analysis on yourself. When's the last time you did a SWOT
Mm,
analysis on yourself? Right? And do some self-analysis on that. What are the steps that are needed to really, hone in on those opportunities or threats? Let's put that aside. Let's just focus in on strengths, right? Being strength-based. Write those all down. Write them down, talk them out, put it out to the world, say it out loud to yourself. You need this, you need that positivity, that enthusiasm to be generated. I say to focus in on the positive because more often than not, and you know this, our negative thoughts, even though we're negatively wired, our negative thoughts generally don't actually come from ourselves. They're not. Those are messages and scripts that have probably been handed down to us in our formative years, in our workplaces. You're still probably going back to that one workplace experience years ago, right? That might be negative. That those thoughts and experiences came from an external environment. You yourself are not negative. You're not, or at least that's not the way I see you, my friend, or
yeah.
others that are listening, right? It's really about focusing on the moment. Now, when you get clarity, and if you're still struggling, find a friend, find somebody that you trust, and say, "Hey, what is it about me that's positive? I just want to have this over a cup of coffee, wine, tea, a beer. I'm not prescribing anybody that's not into, you don't, it can be non-alcoholic, it doesn't have to, but just
Yeah.
somebody that you can have some vibations with and say, what are my strengths? I want to have a conversation about this. And when you get that clarity, now you can look into the future, right? Now you can look into the future because now you can start to say, okay, well, now I can start working on my opportunities. And that can might be so many different things. In preparation, this change is always going to happen. If you want to go back to research, it's still going to go back to connections. In that same research that I referenced earlier from Quega, she actually looked at not just these behaviors, but also looked at the change areas, right? So change around being short-term focus, being emotionally based creatures, this need to always function off of our memories and experiences of like I know it, yeah, okay, great, 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 but also this idea of just too much information or not enough information being thrown at us, right? And
Yeah.
so we look at that resistance to change in our own self, and it's really doing a change management on your own. So, okay, I will end on change management and finding some. So I'll end here. I'll land the plane, my friend. Um, but it's really, we talk about that awareness thing that we always talk about in leadership.
Yeah.
That change management has to come back to yourself then. And the difference between awareness in this sense, so that you prepare for the future, is awareness versus alignment. And let
Okay.
me let me let me pull on alignment.
Sure.
Alignment for yourself, really powerful question. I will not take credit for this. This was a direct report that I had years ago that I actually asked feedback on being a better leader. What am I doing good? That meeting last that that we just had right now, like that update, that town hall. Ooh, I don't think it went so well. Give me some feedback on this. And it was so interesting because this direct gave me some of the best advice right back in the form of a question and say, did that presentation align with who you are? That update, that town hall. And I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, what does that mean? And so now, and she kept asking more and more questions and say, listen, you're this person over here
Yeah.
that didn't align.
Mm.
Totally different between being aware and being aligned with yourself, right? And so now I've kind of evolved that into asking myself from time to time, sometimes more often than not during this chaos, my friend,
Yeah.
what did I do today that aligned with who I am?
Oof.
Said differently, what did I do today that did not align with who I am?
Mm.
Oh, the answers you'll get in that self-talk, that self-dialogue, it could prepare you for anything and everyone, right? Because you are more powerful. You've heard that cliche, you are more powerful than you give yourself credit for. The problem is that you're being too humble around it. You're being meek around it. It's time
Yeah.
to be delicate, delicate balance between that kind of humbleness and be confident. JK, you are beyond what you describe yourself as. There's no reason that you are where you are and people gravitate you for a reason, right? Mm.
I appreciate that. And I want to come back. You said something when you were citing the research about being emotional creatures,
Mhm.
right? And to me, in my journey in allowing myself to be an emotional creature, because without trying, what I learned growing up was it doesn't matter what you're feeling, you need to present like that doesn't bother me. I'm not hurt by that, And what I never knew, right, was that suppression, right? That's the word for it. It's not like you're processing this stuff, but that suppression can really have a negative impact of elevating the high blood pressure. And the positive emotions are contagious, but so are those negative ones. So if your threat response is elevated, other people are going to start picking up on that. How do you know if somebody's just really good at faking it versus like really able to flip into that positive mindset in an authentic way?
There will be an output.
Okay.
Said differently, cross culture, Doesn't matter. And I say I start with cross culture because I know in some cultures, as you get into a professional meeting, a workshop, a training, a town hall, etc., there's a cultural expectation that you will be silent. So it's not just a flat affect on emotions, it's a flat affect of the expectation that you are my director, you are my positional leader, JK. So I'm not gonna say anything.
Right.
Right.
Until I've
But
said
then,
no
right.
directly.
So, but then also, obviously, if you see a inconsistent where Frank, you're usually smiling, you have this fact, and all of a sudden you change, right? So there's a
Mhm.
difference between maybe the culture and the personality piece of it. Regardless, there'll be an output. If you are a verbal person, right, and you are able to speak up, whether introvert, extrovert, ambivert like myself, there will be an output of conflict, of opinion that we can say, well, that was interesting you said that. Let's say more. When that goes away, it doesn't matter what your face is saying. Your body language and what you're saying are just not aligned once again.
Mm,
And even if you are an ambivert, or I mean an introvert, and maybe you are also there could be also cognitive disabilities, etc. Right? So
mhm.
the way I output may be through the form of an email or messenger, some sort of platform that your organization
Right.
uses, right? Whatever it might be, you'll see that decrease. And so those are easy ways to see it before you see it. Now, if you want to go into the other kind of research around that, and I want to, I should have prefaced by saying I am not a wellness coach, right? My doctorate is in social psychology of organizational leadership. So I just want to be true. So stick to your professionals or call JK because he may be better than me on this. But the other piece is that your sleep, right? So I'll just put that. That's an easy way to say because the minute you say you're burnt out or your emotions, your negativity is getting to you, you before you see any of that, your sleep patterns will be completely disruptive. So, how do you as a leader figure that out with your directs? If you don't know how your team functions beneath the surface of a job title or name, then that says something about you as their positional or personal leader, right?
Mm,
But you generally know the reactions that you're getting from your directs, right? They're answering emails at different times now, and not because you set the presence of that. You see them like up a little bit longer, or maybe they're not available as long. They're having to go to medical appointments. You mentioned it earlier, heart rate, blood pressure, all those things are outputs of
mm.
something as well. So I talk about the workplace, but your health and well-being, that psych safety, being unsafe will make your body trigger a certain way. So
That's
what's one
right.
question that you could ask? What's the one takeaway from this? Because there should be an action. You should ask as a leader, if somebody won't do it for you, I've asked that question, what does it take to keep you safe? Said differently, if you are a really good follower, meaning that you will generate what you expect, say in the next one-on-one or next meeting, you know what, JK? I'm going through a lot of stuff, this, that, and the other. Of course, that's going to take trust, right? But this is what I need to keep me safe,
Mm,
right? And you're like, what do you mean keep you safe? And it's like, listen, the next, update that we go to, the next town hall, the next pitch, the next deck we put together, next things like that. What would keep me safe is if you let me know exactly what people said when I was in the meeting afterwards. If you let me know what my opportunities are, if you can help me review this ahead of time, if you give me the practice and soundboard, right? There's so many ways you can do this. Said differently, there'd be an output. So I say all these different
yeah.
things and give all these different things. There'd be an output, my friend. There'd be an output.
Yeah. I love it. And there's a whole lot of people that have no idea what they need to feel safe. And at the I mean, and we're talking psychologically safe because the parameters for physical safety are so easy. Like we learned those early. You can't go punch somebody in the face and get away with it. Like there's accountability, but there's research that shows that if you've experienced some level of social rejection, that part of the brain it registers in the same place. And then, if somebody punched you in the face and then you were supposed to sit down and collaborate with them, how would that go? Not so well. But
Yeah.
we expect people to do that even though they might be experiencing that psychological pain. And I think that your framework, the mantra, movement, moment, helps that. I think just catching, recognizing, labeling the emotion is a really great place to start. But then really exploring, like, what are the areas that I'm sensitive to that get me in that fairness? I know is a big one for me. I can get really upset witnessing or experiencing things that aren't fair. And then once you're aware of that, what do you do with it? And I really like to explore that. I'm a geek on trying to understand this little crazy brain up here, right? It's like it's typical in some fashions and completely unique in others. And trying to understand that because it doesn't matter how it got there. It's my responsibility. It's the only brain I get to live with. How do I make it the best ride? And I love the positivity aspect and that energy that you bring to situations. I wish more leaders were
Oh,
asking
thank
those
you.
questions and bringing that to light for their folks. We got to wrap up here pretty soon, but if there is one thing that you would like to leave, like either emerging leaders with that you haven't said already, right? What's going to help people be the most
Mm.
prepared for these uncertainties that are coming and changes? What's uh, what's your secret sauce if they could take away one thing?
The secret sauce, right? Oh, it's always the secret sauce. I'm gonna reference a really good book. Cole Reiser wrote this book, and I've got it right over here in my bookshelf over here, and I've got a lot of tabs in it. Cole Reiser's book, Hostage at the Table.
Oof,
Oof, intense. Yes, a psychologist turned negotiator, a hostage negotiator turned consultant. Whoa, long stretch
interesting.
there.
Yeah.
Two words in the book and then I'll expand on a framework. Secure base. Secure base. Because you and I have talked about psychological safety, and there's so many different assessments, which you're good at. You're masterful in your assessments, et cetera, and your experiences. A lot of assessments around psychological safety. But one of the themes that resonates with me, the secret sauce, is how do I feel safe to be able to make mistakes
Mm,
in my personal and professional life? Because through making mistakes, the cliche is where I'll grow.
yeah.
The personal framework that I've developed and it's evolved, and it will probably evolve after the meaningful conversation that you and I are just having right now. But it's evolved, and it's generally just, we all have lived experiences, right, wrong, or indifferent, positive, negative, neutral. We have lived experiences. We have frictions in those experiences. If we can find ways to reduce, probably through secure base, but if we can find ways to reduce those frictions, add in the exposure that we feel we are not getting. You talked about comparing or the fairness.
Hmm.
That's where the opportunities will then lie, equals opportunities. So again, said differently, lived experiences, less frictions, plus exposure equals opportunity. But first
Mm.
starts with secure base. You got to be able to feel comfortable to make mistakes in your personal and professional life. I don't get paid to reference that book, but that book has been like life changing for me. It's like, what's my secure base? What makes me
Oh,
feel comfortable? Who or what makes me feel comfortable so I can go out and explore? Yeah, it's powerful, my friend.
I love it. Secure base. I'm hearing psychological safety, having all my needs kind of met and in place and awareness. Because, like, if you don't have that, yeah, then you're worried about surviving and not the essence of that. I think that is very sage advice. Frank, it has been lovely talking to you. We've got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your perspective. It's been a
Thank
real
you.
joy talking to you today.